guys, I'm on a little bit early just in case anybody comes in. I wanted to practice this as well since I've never done anything on Facebook Live before, but I think it's working. So I will give everybody a minute or two to catch up, and yes, you're going to hear my dogs bark possibly. Apparently the mailman is here or something along those lines, because that's usually what makes them bark. But I will give everybody a minute or two, looks like 2 minutes, based on the clock behind me. Oh, I think I have 2 people watching. Hello. I'm just waiting until we get to 12:30 and then I will actually start. You're hearing my dogs bark. It's a little bit of a crazy time for everybody. I know for me, for you guys, for my dogs who are barking. Probably at the mailman, though the UPS truck might be here. UPS literally created Loves Dogs with my dogs because we had the most wonderful UPS driver for so many years, and every single time he delivered a package, he would give the dogs a treat. And so now, every time they hear any truck, they think it might be the UPS driver to give them a treat. So of course, they don't know how to read, so it could be UPS, it could be the mailman, it could be FedEx, it doesn't matter, they still bark because they want to go outside and hopefully get a treat. But anyway, I think we're at 12:30. So welcome, my name is Laurie. I am a group fitness instructor at the Wayne YMCA, and you are now in my kitchen, so welcome to my home. Like you guys, I've been self-quarantining, socially distancing, and along with that comes a lot of baking, and therefore a lot of eating. And so I like to try to lighten things up whenever I possibly can. So the first time I might make a recipe, I usually make it exactly as written, but then I take notes about either something that I like with a taste profile, or if there might be a way that I can cut fat, if possible, because that is one way that I really do like to make things a little bit healthier. So in this case, one of the things I'm going to be doing when we're making our healthier version of banana bread is using yogurt, Greek yogurt in my case, in place of all the oil or butter that might normally be called for in the recipe. So if you guys are like me, this past week or two, you've been buying bananas, because every time I go to Costco, I pick up a bunch of bananas. And before you get to the end of them, they start getting brown and spotted. And in my family, nobody ever wants to eat them when they're brown and spotted, even though they're super sweet and yummy at that point. But this is a great way to use up those brown bananas. You can also throw them in the freezer and throw them in your smoothies, or take them back out and make this recipe at any time with bananas that you have in your freezer. But I'm going to give you a little tip as well. So behind me is the batch that I just bought recently, and I wrapped the top with plastic wrap because that's going to keep the gases from that get released when the banana is ripening. That's going to keep the gases from releasing, which slows the ripening process of bananas. So if you just take a little bit of plastic wrap and put it over the stems of your bananas, that's going to help keep them a little bit longer. But let's talk about our banana bread. So first things first, I posted the recipe online, so hopefully you already saw that. Of course, you need your bananas, you need 2 eggs, 1 cup of yogurt. Now, if you don't have non-fat Greek yogurt like I have, I always have that in the house, you can use any kind of yogurt you do have, but if it's sweetened already, you might want to take your sugar down a little bit because that might be a little too sweet in your end product. So I'm using a cup of sugar. Maybe if you are using a sweetened yogurt, you bring that down to 3/4 of a cup. Of course, everybody likes things with different sweetness. I don't like things to be too sweet, so you can adjust the batter to your taste as we go along. I already have my 2½ cups of flour, my baking soda, my baking powder, vanilla, and in my family, everything has to have chocolate added in. So we're chocoholics. We're not really big into nuts in your baked goods, but if you want to have nuts, you can certainly have those ready as well. And you can add them in at the end. So let's get baking, I guess, right, don't we? First things first, we have to prep our oven, preheat it. In my house, I have a convection oven, so I actually take the temperature down about 25 degrees from what the recipe normally calls for. So if you don't have a convection oven, a traditional gas oven, basic electric oven, set your temperature for 375. I'm going to be setting mine for 350. Okay, so while that's warming up, let's talk about pans for a minute. So I am going to prep my pan. Now you can use a muffin tin, you can use a large loaf pan. My favorites are like the mini muffin tins or the mini muffin tins. I like the 8 because it's a little bit more than a muffin, but you can slice it up and it's nice to serve your guests. So that's probably what I'm going to use today. But anything you have will work. So I'm going to get that ready by just spraying it with a little cooking spray. Any cooking spray will do. If you don't have cooking spray, you can use a little bit of your butter or oil. If you're using a muffin tin, you can certainly use papers inside. So once that's ready, set that aside. And let's get cooking. So first thing we have to do is mash our bananas. So I'm going to do it in my stand mixer, but you could mash them up by hand on a plate. You could certainly use a regular mixer, not a stand mixer, but a regular mixer that you might have, a hand mixer. We're just going to peel our bananas and put them right in the bowl. And get those going. So the mixer's going to make a little bit of noise, hopefully not too much, but we will see. I'm going to get that going. Now, if you like your banana bread with really smooth bananas like I do, you want to make sure you mash your bananas really well. If you prefer it to be a little chunkier, you like to have chunks of banana in your banana bread, then you want to just leave it a little chunky at this point. Get rid of that. Okay, so to our bananas, we're going to add our wet ingredients. So I'm going to start with the yogurt. Get that in there. Now, with your yogurt, you might find some separation with the whey, and that's actually good stuff. There's a lot of protein in that, so you want to get that in there as well. And then we're going to do our 2 eggs. And this is really the only fat that's going in. So if you didn't want to use regular eggs, you could use egg whites, you could use egg substitutes. It's really up to you what you want to use. And if you also are vegan, you could make this using silken tofu that's been pureed, or maybe even a soy yogurt of some sort would probably be a good substitute. Okay, just be careful to watch the fat content because a lot of them tend to be very high in fat. So we're going to get that all mixed together. You want it to be, like I said, I like it nice and smooth. But it really doesn't take very long for this recipe to come together. So I always baked with my kids when they were young, and this was one of their favorites. And it was really easy for them to make because it's not a ton of ingredients, and they always love to help mom in the kitchen. So I'm going to add my baking soda and my baking powder to my flour and just kind of mix that in so it's nice and blended. And then I'm going to add this in. It doesn't have to be a little at a time, it's okay. You can just get it all in there. Oh, it doesn't really want to work for me today. My baking corner is usually behind me, but it's facing the wall, so I didn't want to, have you guys kind of looking at my back the whole time, so I flipped things around today. So I'm going to start this off really slow because otherwise I'm going to get a face full of flour, and nobody wants that, right? So start it off slow. Now the key when you're mixing this is not to over mix. So once you kind of get the flour slightly incorporated, I'm going to put this up a little bit higher. Oop, it still went a little bit fine. But 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. I don't even need to get to 3, 2, 1. It's already done. So it can be a little bit lumpy, and that's okay. Lumpy is fine, but we want to just get rid of all of these things. I'm going to get my spatula because we do need to scrape this. So I'm going to take this out of the mixer. So let me talk to you about gluten-free for a minute, because normally I do a lot of gluten-free baking as well. I'm gluten-free, my family is not. And I did put in the recipe that you could use a gluten-free all-purpose flour for this. One of the things that I find when cooking with gluten-free, baking with gluten-free is if your recipe, your flour blend doesn't already have something called xanthan gum, you want to add about 1/4 teaspoon for every cup of gluten-free flour blend that you're using. So if you don't have it in there, add that little bit of xanthan gum. So the other thing that's important when you're doing gluten-free baking is to let your batter rest. So before you bake, you're going to want to add, you're going to want to let it sit for about 10 or 15 minutes. So if you've ever noticed sometimes with gluten-free baking that there's a bit of a gritty texture to what you're eating, if you just let that sit for 10 to 15 minutes, let the ingredients really melt together, you're going to get rid of that grittiness. And most people, when I give them gluten-free baked goods, have no idea that it's gluten-free. So I'm going to add my vanilla. And you notice at this point I'm not on the stand anymore. I'm using my spatula. I'm also going to add my chocolate chips. Now, you don't have to use those chocolate chips. Remember, I did say they're optional, so it's really up to you whether you want to use them. Just going to give this a little bit of a stir to incorporate everything. And here's pretty much what my batter is looking like. Now, yes, it's a little bit thick. I don't want it to be too runny. So quick breads are actually a great option for gluten-free baking, because they do come together really well and you don't really miss the gluten like you do in traditional breads. I'm just going to clear this space and grab what I need, which is a measuring cup. So I like all of my baked goods to be nice and even, so I start by using a measuring cup. Half a cup for something like this is good, maybe 2/3 of a cup. For a muffin tin, maybe start with a 1/4 cup. And you don't want to overfill your tin. You want to keep it so it's below the top of whatever it is that you're filling, because it's going to rise when you bake it, and you don't want it to overflow and spill all over the bottom of your oven. Trust me, I've had to clean many an oven in my day, as I've learned, or my kids have learned over the years. And cleaning ovens is no fun, at least for me anyway. So, we're getting these in. So whatever way that you're using, whether it's muffin tins, large loaf pan, let me talk to you a little bit about baking time. So in the recipe online, I did mention that every oven varies. So my oven is going to be different than your oven. Some run hot, some are low. So you have to really kind of know your oven and know when to start looking at your things. So muffin tin size is also going to matter as far as how long you bake it for, because obviously the smaller the size of what you're baking, the quicker it's going to cook. I personally don't really like to do these in a large tin, because I find that it takes a really long time for it to bake in the center. And I'm always looking for that toothpick to come out clean in the center, and it can just take a really, really long time for it to get there. So nobody in my family, once the house starts smelling super good with the banana muffin smell, wants to wait for an entire loaf to cook. So that's why I discovered these little mini loaf pans. So they give you that kind, and I don't know, something about them being smaller just makes everything cuter, doesn't it? It's a silly little thing. Just makes everything cuter. So we're just going to get these finished filled, and then we are going to get them in our preheated oven. I actually haven't heard my oven beep yet to tell me that it's ready, but I'm sure it will be any minute. Okay, so one of the things that I'm going to do also is just give this a nice little tap down to get any of the air bubbles out, and kind of flatten out any mounds that exist. Okay, so my oven is not quite ready yet, but I'm going to put them in anyway. And if you notice, I'm taking out the batch that I did make yesterday. Now, today's batch is not gluten-free. Yesterday's batch was. This way everybody in my house gets a chance to try them. Let me show you what the end result looks like. So you want to take it out when you're nice and rounded and browned on the top. The toothpick will come out clean, and it gives you a nice golden inside like that. And you can see my chocolate chips are definitely spread around. So keep an eye on your ovens. Enjoy your banana bread when it comes out, and if you've made it along with me, post a picture if you can of what your end result comes out to be. I'd love to hear from you, and hope you enjoy my recipe for healthier version of banana bread. And if you have any other requests for recipes you'd like lightened up, send them to me and I'll see what I can do with them, and maybe I'll be able to lighten up something for next week as well. You guys take care, stay healthy, stay well during this time, and I can't wait for the YMCA to open again, for this all to be behind us, and I can't wait to no longer have to socially distance and be able to see everybody's smiling faces. So you guys stay healthy and have a great day. I don't know how to end this. There it is.